There's more to your life than you've been told, and what you're about to hear will change the way you see your life. Because once you understand where you came from, everything starts to make sense, and your journey becomes easier and more meaningful. Welcome to the Conscious Creator. Here we explore the hidden forces shaping our reality and learn how to work with them in practical, powerful ways. Today we're stepping into something extraordinary. We're diving into Sylvia Browne's Life on the Other Side. And this is not a simple book breakdown. This is a journey into one of the most fascinating and mind-opening pictures of what waits for us beyond this life, why we choose the lives we do, and the deeper purpose behind everything we experience. If you've ever wondered who you really are on the soul level, where you came from before this life, or why certain things seem to follow you across time, this exploration is going to feel like coming home. Sylvia's insights are bold, beautiful, and full of meaning, and we're going to walk through them together in a way that connects to conscious creation and the way you shape your reality every single day. The first time I learned about the other side the way Sylvia Browne describes it, something happened that's hard to explain. It wasn't shock, it wasn't disbelief. It was more like the information settled inside me in this very natural way, almost as if I already knew it. It felt true somehow, like it was an answer to a question I never fully knew how to ask. She talks about the other side as the place we come from, and the way she explains it just makes sense. Not because it sounds comforting, but because it has that feeling of recognition to it. We spend so much time on Earth trying to figure out who we are, but according to Sylvia, that confusion doesn't exist over there. On the other side, we're fully ourselves, clear, aware, comfortable in our own being. And for me, that idea stayed with me. The way she describes that world is so matter of fact. It isn't a fantasy or a dreamlike place. It's structured, organized, alive. It has landscapes, learning spaces, gathering places, creativity, and a sense of harmony that feels steady and familiar. And when you hear her speak about it, it doesn't feel far away. It feels close, like something just beyond a thin veil. And honestly, that explains so much about life here. There are moments when you feel out of place for reasons you can't articulate. You're living your life, everything seems fine, but there's this subtle sense that something is missing, or that you're missing somewhere. Sylvia's explanation gives that feeling context. If the other side is home, then it makes sense why we sometimes feel like visitors here. There's also something incredibly empowering in the idea that our time on Earth is temporary but intentional. When you look at life through that lens, it's not about surviving chaos or stumbling through random experiences. It's about learning, growing, expanding yourself in ways that only this physical world can teach. And that idea brings so much relief because suddenly everything you've been through isn't meaningless. There's purpose threaded through it. And when it comes to consciously creating, this idea becomes even more meaningful. Sylvia says that on the other side, creation is instant. Thought becomes form right away. We don't have the slow physical process we have here, and that tells me that the ability to shape our reality didn't disappear when we came into these bodies. It's still there, it's just slowed down, because this world teaches us through experience, not immediacy. So when we use intention or choose our focus or shift how we respond to something, we're reconnecting with a natural ability we've always had. We aren't learning something new, we're remembering. For me, that's the part that feels incredible. The idea that we come from a world where we are fully awake, fully aware, and fully ourselves, and that we carry a piece of that awareness into this life. Even if we forget for a while, even if we get distracted by the heaviness of this world, we didn't lose who we were when we came here. We're slowly finding our way back to it. One of Sylvia Browne's most striking teachings is that every soul who comes to Earth chooses to be here. She didn't say it casually. She said it with absolute certainty. And the way she explained it made the whole idea feel much more natural than you'd expect. According to Sylvia, when we're on the other side, we're completely aware of ourselves. We know our strengths, our patterns, the things we've already mastered, and the things that still need refining. There's no confusion there. Because of that clarity, we can actually look at an entire lifetime the way you would look at a map. You can see the emotional range, the types of lessons a lifetime might offer, the kinds of challenges that would stretch you, and the moments that would help you grow in ways nothing else could. And Sylvia said something that stayed with me. She said, Earth is difficult, but it's not meaningless. Souls come here because this is where you learn through experience, not theory. On the other side, you understand concepts instantly. Here, you understand by living them. She also explained that we don't make this decision alone. There's guidance involved. Your spirit guides, and sometimes a council of more advanced souls, help you review what you've already learned across other lifetimes and what still feels incomplete. Not incomplete in a negative way, just areas where you want more depth, more understanding, more emotional range. And that's how a lifetime gets chosen. Not as punishment, not because you're supposed to, but because there's something inside you that knows what this life can teach you. Sylvia talked a lot about the emotional atmosphere of Earth. She said the reason souls return here again and again is because no other realm offers this intensity of emotion. Not the pain, but the growth that comes from moving through it. She believed that choosing a difficult life doesn't mean a soul is weak. She actually said the opposite. Souls who choose Earth tend to be strong, determined, and ready for real evolution. And what makes this so powerful is that it explains why certain themes follow us. Not because we're doomed to repeat them, but because we came here to finally understand them. When Sylvia broke this down, it didn't make life feel smaller. It made life feel intentional. It made everything feel like part of a larger story instead of a random sequence of events. And this is where consciously creating fits so naturally. If your soul chose to come here for a specific kind of growth, then the experiences you face aren't interruptions. They're part of the plan you agreed to. They're here to show you something about yourself, something you were ready to understand. It doesn't mean everything is pre-written. Sylvia was very clear about that. You have free will here. You can take any path you want. You can rise faster than expected, or you can take the long way around. But underneath all of it, there's a deeper intention from your soul guiding the general direction of your life. When you understand that, life starts to feel different. You stop seeing yourself as someone who got dropped into a random lifetime. You start remembering that you said yes to this. You chose this experience because there was something here for you, something meaningful, something that would shape the soul you'll bring back home. One of the ideas Sylvia Browne spoke about that changed the way I see everything is the concept of the life chart. She described it as a blueprint we put together before we come into a body. And when she explained it, something in me settled. It just made sense. It felt true in a way that's hard to explain unless you've had that moment where information lands and you feel it instead of thinking about it. Sylvia said that before we're born, we sit down with our guides and outline the general shape of our next life. We're not choosing every detail, because that would take away the whole point of free will. What we're choosing are the themes, the patterns, the big turning points, the people we're meant to meet, the emotional lessons we want to explore. It's like drawing the major landmarks on a map and leaving the roads between them open. And what struck me most is how intentional it all is. She said we choose these things from a place of complete clarity on the other side. There's no confusion. There's no fear influencing the decision. You're not trying to escape anything or fix anything. You're simply looking at who you are as a soul and deciding what kind of growth feels meaningful for your next experience. Sylvia explained that life charts also include certain agreements with other souls. These are the people who show up in our life in important ways. Not always easy ways. Sometimes they're the ones who challenge us the most. But there's meaning behind those connections. There's a history. There's an arrangement that says, we'll go in together. We'll help each other grow, even if it's uncomfortable at times. What I love about this idea is that it helps make sense of the relationships that feel strangely significant. Those moments when someone walks into your life and you immediately feel some kind of familiarity. Not necessarily in a romantic way, just a sense of I know you, even if you've never met in this lifetime. Sylvia says those are charted connections. People you've known long before this life, the ones you trust instinctively and feel drawn to, the ones who chose to cross your path again now. She also talked about how charts include exit points and wake-up points. Exit points aren't something scary. They're simply times in your life when your soul checks in and decides whether to stay or leave. Wake-up points are the moments where something shifts inside you, a realization, a change in direction, a deep internal turning. Those moments when you suddenly see your own life differently. She said those are part of the chart too. For me, this idea brought a sense of order back into my life. It helped me feel supported rather than pushed, and it gave everything a sense of direction without closing the door on choice. And when you look at this through the lens of consciously creating, it fits perfectly. Your chart gives you the general story you wanted to experience, but you're still the one shaping the details. You're still choosing how you respond, what you learn, what you let go of, and how much you allow yourself to expand. You're not locked into a fate. You're moving through a blueprint that your soul created with love, with intention, and with a very deep understanding of who you truly are. It's comforting to think that you helped design this life. It gives everything more meaning. It makes you feel less lost. And it reminds you that even when life feels confusing, there's a bigger picture behind it that you understood long before you were born. One of Sylvia Browne's teachings that stays with you long after you hear it is the idea that we choose our parents before we incarnate. Not in a symbolic way, literally. And I remember the first time I came across that, I paused for a moment because the weight of that truth hits differently. It makes you look at your entire beginning in a new way. You start seeing your life not as something you were dropped into, but something you stepped into with intention. Sylvia explained that when we're on the other side, we don't choose based on who will give us the easiest experience. Souls don't pick parents because everything will be smooth and perfect. We choose based on what we want to learn, what we want to strengthen, and what dynamics will help us grow in the ways we planned when we created our chart. She said something that always stuck with me. Souls don't judge parents the way human personalities do. They're not looking for good or bad. They're looking for fit. They're looking for the emotional environment that matches the lessons they're ready for. Sometimes that means choosing parents who are loving and supportive. Sometimes it means choosing parents who are complicated, inconsistent, or emotionally unavailable. Not because the soul wants difficulty, but because the soul understands what each situation will bring forward. Sylvia explained this with such clarity. She said that on the other side, you can see exactly what a particular family dynamic will bring out in you, whether that's resilience, compassion, stronger boundaries, or the ability to understand yourself without needing outside approval. Souls choose parents with intention every single time, and that insight alone can soften something inside you, especially if your childhood wasn't easy. It doesn't erase what you lived through, but it shifts the meaning. You start to see that you didn't end up with your family by chance. There was something there you wanted to explore, something you wanted to understand, something that would shape you into the person you were meant to become. Sylvia also said we choose our bodies. Everything from our appearance to our health to our natural strengths and sensitivities is selected deliberately, not in a superficial way, but in a deeply practical one. The body becomes part of the curriculum for our spiritual growth. It gives us certain experiences and perspectives that align with the themes we laid out in our chart. And I have to admit, the more I thought about that, the more comforting it became. Because so many people spend their lives fighting their body, judging it, comparing it, or wishing they were different. Sylvia's teaching flips that completely. If you chose this body, then you didn't make a mistake. Your soul knew exactly what it was doing. This also fits beautifully with the idea of consciously creating. Because if your beginning was chosen, then nothing about it is random. You weren't born into the wrong family. You didn't get stuck in the wrong body. You're not behind in life. You started exactly where you intended to start, with the exact circumstances that would set you on the path your soul designed. And when you look at your life through that understanding, something softens. You stop fighting your origin story, you start working with it. And you realize that your beginning wasn't the limit. It was the doorway. One of the teachings Sylvia Browne was absolutely unwavering about is that none of us come into a lifetime alone. She said every single soul has a guide who stays with them from the moment they take their first breath until the moment they return to the other side. And the way she explained it made the whole idea feel natural, almost obvious, like something we've always known somewhere inside us. Sylvia was very clear that guides aren't assigned randomly. They're not strangers. They're souls we know well, often souls we've traveled with through many lifetimes. She described them almost like old friends who volunteered to support us while we're here because they understand us. They know our patterns, they know our strengths, and they know the lessons we charted for ourselves before we were born. The comfort in that is incredible. Because when you think back to the hardest times in your life, the moments where you felt lost or scared or unsure, the idea that someone was there with you the entire time makes those memories feel different. Not erased, but less lonely. Sylvia said that your guide tries to steer you gently, but they'll never interfere with your free will. Their guidance is subtle. It shows up as intuition, a soft feeling in your chest, a quiet nudge that tells you something is right or wrong, or even those moments where you suddenly feel a sense of peace that doesn't match the situation you're in. She used to say that guides speak to us in the language of emotion and energy, because that's what we can feel the most clearly while we're in a physical body. They don't shout, they don't override us, they guide. And once you understand that, you start to notice those moments more. A thought that comes out of nowhere but feels steady. A decision that feels easier than it should. A moment where something inside you says, pay attention. Those are the gentle ways they reach us. Sylvia also believed that guides are patient beyond anything we can imagine. They're not disappointed when we ignore their nudges. They don't judge the choices we make. They know that every experience we have, even the ones that feel like detours, still teaches us something valuable. They're here to support our growth, not control it. She talked about the bond between a soul and their guide with such certainty. It wasn't mystical to her. It was the most natural thing in the world. And when you pair that with consciously creating, it gives you an entirely different relationship with your own intuition. Instead of second-guessing every feeling or spinning in circles trying to figure out what's right, you start to trust those moments of inner clarity. You start to recognize that something is helping you move toward the experiences your soul came here for. It's also comforting to know that your guide sees the big picture. They remember your chart, they know where you're headed, and they can offer support in ways you don't even realize until you look back years later and think, now I see why I felt that way. And this is something Sylvia said often. When you go back to the other side, your guide is one of the first beings you see. There's recognition, relief, and this overwhelming sense of being welcomed home. They've been with you every step of the way, and they're there at the end waiting for you. You've never been alone. Not once. Not for a single moment in your entire life. When Sylvia Browne talked about the other side, there was something about the way she described it that felt steady and matter-of-fact. Almost like she was talking about a place she'd been 100 times. And the more you listen to her, the more the picture she paints starts to feel natural. Like it's not an imaginary realm, but an actual location your soul knows deeply. She said the other side, what she often called home base, isn't a blank space or a cloud-filled sky. It's a fully developed world. It has structure, beauty, activity, and purpose. And the incredible part is that she described it as a perfected version of Earth. Not Earth as it is, but Earth as it was intended to be. The mountains, the oceans, the trees, the colors, everything exists there, but in a purer form. It isn't fragile or temporary the way it can be here. It's steady, balanced, harmonious. Sylvia explained that souls on the other side are always busy, but never in the frantic way we experience here. There are learning halls where souls continue to study and develop. There are places dedicated to healing and reflection. There are spaces for creativity where souls work on art, music, architecture, and ideas they love. She said the other side is filled with movement and purpose, but without the pressure or exhaustion that we associate with work. And one detail she would repeat often is that communication there is instant. Souls communicate through thought, so there's no misunderstanding, there's no miscommunication or guessing at someone's intentions. Everything is clear, and everything is honest. That alone tells you how different the emotional atmosphere must feel. Another thing that stayed with me is how she described the moment of arriving back home. Sylvia said the second your soul crosses over, there's no confusion, there's no fear. There's this immediate sense of recognition, like stepping through the door of a place you've lived your entire life. She said souls often say the same thing when they return. I remember. Not in a dramatic sense, but in a quiet, natural way, like something finally clicks back into place. And it makes you think about that subtle longing we feel sometimes. That sense that we're looking for something, even when we can't name it. Sylvia believed that feeling is tied to home base. Our soul remembers it even when our conscious mind doesn't. What I love about her description is that it takes away so much fear about what happens after this life. She didn't talk about punishment or judgment. She talked about returning to a place that feels familiar, safe, and deeply loving. A place where you reconnect with people you've known across lifetimes. A place where everything you learned here gets understood at a much deeper level. And when you look at this through the lens of consciously creating, there's meaning in the idea that we come from a world where intention shapes everything instantly. It explains why our thoughts and feelings have influence here, even though the process is slower. It also explains why intuition feels so real. It's not something we're developing for the first time. It's something we carried with us from a world where awareness is natural. Sylvia's teachings about the other side aren't abstract. They're practical. They help you understand why you're here, where you came from, and where you're going next. And knowing that home base exists and that your soul already knows its way back brings a kind of calm that nothing else can touch. One of Sylvia Browne's most fascinating teachings is the idea of the Council of Elders, a group of incredibly advanced souls who help guide us before and after each incarnation. And she never described them as judges or authority figures. She said they're more like wise teachers who understand us completely and want nothing more than to help us grow. Sylvia explained that when we finish a lifetime and return to the other side, one of the first things we do is meet with this council to look back at the life we just lived. This isn't a punishment, it's not a trial, it's a review, a reflection. Almost like sitting with loving mentors who help you see the larger meaning behind the experiences you had. The way she described it always stayed with me. There's no shame, no scolding, no guilt, just clarity. You become aware of the choices you made and why you made them, and you understand the ways your actions shape the lives around you. You recognize the places where you grew, even when it didn't feel like growth, and you can also see where you struggled, not as failures but as experiences your soul wants to explore more fully. Sylvia said the council asks gentle questions, the kind that open your awareness rather than make you feel small. Things like, how did that experience feel? Or what did you learn from this? It's not about being right or wrong. It's about understanding yourself at a level that's nearly impossible to reach while you're in a human body. And this is where the life review becomes so meaningful. On Earth, we're inside the story, and it's hard to see the larger pattern. But once you're back on the other side, everything opens up. You remember the intentions you set when you created your chart. You recognize the turning points you planned, and whether you noticed them when they arrived. You understand the relationships you chose and the ways those connections shaped your growth. Sylvia explained that this review isn't about reliving pain. It's about understanding the purpose behind every experience. When something difficult comes up, you don't return to the emotion itself. You see why the moment mattered, how it shifted you, the strength it built in you, and the compassion it awakened. She also shared that the council helps you decide what comes next, whether you want to rest, study, stay on the other side for a while, or plan another life. And again, nothing is forced. Souls choose based on what feels meaningful to their evolution. When you hear this through the lens of consciously creating, something shifts. you start to understand that the choices you make in this lifetime are part of a much bigger story. You're not just trying to get through each day. You're shaping your soul's growth across lifetimes. Every time you choose kindness, every time you rise above an old pattern, every time you listen to your intuition instead of fear, you're adding to that greater journey. And knowing there is a counsel waiting for you, not to judge you, but to help you understand the full meaning of your life, brings a sense of peace that lingers long after you hear it. One of the things Sylvia Browne was so gifted at was taking something as mysterious as the spirit world and explaining it in a way that felt completely natural. She didn't describe the other side as vague or symbolic. She talked about it like a place with real structure, real activity, and real purpose. And when you listen to her, the whole picture she paints has this calm familiarity to it, like she's reminding you of something you used to know. According to Sylvia, the other side is busy. Souls aren't floating around in endless stillness. They're engaged, curious, creative, and involved in so many different kinds of activities. She said the spirit world is more alive than Earth, not less, because nothing deteriorates there. Nothing drains you. Energy doesn't get lost. Everything is fueled by intention, and everything you do is meaningful. She described enormous learning halls where souls study anything they're drawn to. Subjects like history, science, healing, music, philosophy, not because they need to learn it the way we do, but because learning expands the soul. She said souls love to study, they love to explore ideas, they love to deepen their understanding of the universe, and they do it joyfully, not out of pressure or expectation. There are also creative centers. Sylvia talked about these with so much excitement. Souls write, they compose, they paint, they design, they create in ways that are completely unrestricted, because intention shapes the form instantly. If a soul wants to design a structure, they can. If they want to craft music, it's done through the feeling of it. There's no limitation the way we experience here. The spirit world is full of expression, and it's expression without fear or self-doubt. She also described beautiful gathering spaces where souls meet with friends and loved ones between incarnations. These aren't casual places. They're deeply meaningful. Souls come together to share what they've learned, to reconnect, and to support each other. And she said these connections feel even stronger there than they do here, because there's no barrier between souls. There's no misunderstanding. Everything is clear. And then there are the healing areas. Not punishment, not recovery from sin, nothing like that. Healing from the density and intensity of Earth. Healing from emotional experiences that were overwhelming or heavy. Healing from a lifetime of trying, learning, struggling, and growing. Sylvia said the spirit world is gentle in ways that are almost impossible to describe. Souls rest there. They're strengthened there. They're understood there. She made it very clear that every soul is welcomed home with love, no matter what happened in their physical life. Another part she emphasized is that time doesn't work there the way it does here. Souls don't rush. They don't age. They don't feel behind. There's no running out of time. Everything unfolds naturally in a kind of rhythm that matches the soul's own pace. And when you think about consciously creating, Sylvia's description gives you a clearer picture of why this life sometimes feels slow or heavy. We're coming from a world where everything responds instantly. Here, creation is gradual because the physical world teaches us through the process. It helps us understand intention, focus, and emotional alignment in a deeper way. The structure of the other side isn't fantasy. It's purposeful. It's organized. And Sylvia believed it mirrors our potential in physical form, just filtered through a slower environment. Understanding how active and alive the spirit world is makes this life feel less like a separation and more like a temporary chapter in a much larger journey. One of the teachings Sylvia Browne returned to over and over is the idea that souls don't travel alone. We come into lifetimes connected to groups of souls we've known for thousands of years, sometimes longer. And the way she explained it gives you such a different understanding of the relationships in your life. Sylvia said that soul groups are formed on the other side. They're made up of souls who resonate with each other, who grow at a similar pace, who feel familiar in a way that's deeper than anything we experience physically. These aren't random assortments of beings. They're more like families of spirit, bonded through countless shared experiences and long histories of learning together. She explained that when we're planning our next incarnation, we often choose to come in with members of our group. Not always in the same roles, and not always in ways that are easy. Someone who was your partner in one lifetime might be your child in the next. Someone who is a friend might come in as a sibling, or even as someone who challenges you. But underneath all of it is a recognition, a connection that goes far beyond this lifetime. Sylvia said something that really stayed with me. We incarnate together because we trust each other. Even the difficult relationships can fall under that truth. Sometimes a soul you love agrees to play a challenging role in your life, not to harm you, but to push you into growth you wouldn't reach otherwise. And of course, we don't see that while we're here. Earth doesn't give us the luxury of remembering those agreements. But once you hear Sylvia's explanation, it changes the way you think about the people who have shaped your life. She also believed that soul groups tend to share certain themes. One group might be centered around compassion, another around creativity, leadership, healing, or teaching. These patterns show up across lifetimes and often influence the roles souls choose when they incarnate. It's not rigid or predetermined, just a natural pull that aligns with the kind of growth each soul is looking for. And there's something comforting about the idea that the important people in your life didn't just appear here with you by coincidence. There's a history underneath those connections, a pattern, a rhythm that moves through lifetime after lifetime. When someone feels instantly familiar, Sylvia believed that's usually a sign you've known them before. And that familiarity isn't imagined. It's recognition. Looking at this through the lens of consciously creating gives you a whole new way of understanding relationships. People aren't just characters in your story, they're partners in your growth. They bring out certain things in you because your souls chose to work together. And while free will is always a factor, people can change, drift away, or stay longer than expected. The core connection is still there. It's deeper than circumstance. Sylvia's teachings on soul groups remind you that nothing meaningful in your life is random. The love, the challenges, the friendships, the losses, they all connect to something larger. A long, ongoing journey you've been walking with familiar souls beside you. And once you understand that, the relationships in your life begin to feel more significant. You feel less alone, and you start to see the people around you with new eyes, knowing you've probably traveled with them long before this lifetime ever began. One of the areas Sylvia Browne talked about with so much confidence and clarity is what happens to us when we sleep. And once you hear her explanation, dreams stop feeling random. They stop feeling like your brain sorting things out. They start to feel like something much more intentional, something that connects directly to who you are as a soul. Sylvia believed that sleep is the time when the soul loosens its grip on the physical body. Not in a dramatic way, but in a natural, gentle way. According to her, the soul steps slightly out of the body every night and reconnects with the other side. She said it's like charging your energy, reconnecting with home, and touching the place you came from so you can handle the density of this world again the next day. She also said that dreams fall into different categories. Some dreams are symbolic, some are emotional processing, but many dreams, she believed, are real visits, actual experiences your soul is having while the body rests. She described it as a kind of nightly astral travel. The soul temporarily lifts from the physical body and moves into a space where the rules are different, the energy is lighter, and communication is effortless. And that's why some dreams feel so vivid and meaningful. They aren't creations of the mind. They're memories of where your soul actually went. Sylvia talked a lot about meeting loved ones on the other side during sleep. Not in a metaphorical way. She said those visits are real. The soul recognizes them instantly, even when the conscious mind doesn't remember clearly in the morning. This is why some dreams leave you with that strong feeling the moment you wake up, a kind of emotional imprint that stays with you all day. Those dreams mean something. They come from somewhere real. She also explained that guides often use the dream state to communicate with us because it's the one time we're not resisting with logic or fear. We're more open when we sleep. more receptive, more aligned with our soul's natural state. So a lot of guidance, reassurance, and even course correction can come through dreams, not in dramatic symbols, but through feelings, clarity, or insight that appears out of nowhere. And then there's the other side of dreams, the ones that help with emotional clearing. Sylvia said the soul uses the dream state to release things that would be too heavy to process all at once while awake. So even the strange dreams, the confusing ones, the ones that seem chaotic, may still be part of the soul's nightly way of staying balanced. One of Sylvia's most interesting teachings was that astral travel isn't rare. She believed everyone does it, whether they remember or not. Some people only recall fragments. Some recall nothing. Some wake up with a very distinct sense of having been somewhere. And she always said that the feeling matters more than the memory. If you wake up with clarity, calm, or a sense of comfort for no logical reason, something real happened. When you look at this through the lens of consciously creating, it gives you such a different relationship with rest. Sleep isn't a pause in your growth, it's part of it. It's where the soul reconnects to its true state, so you can keep growing in this physical world without losing yourself to exhaustion or confusion. Sylvia's teachings remind you that even when your body sleeps, your soul is still alive, still learning, still traveling, still connected. And that connection is one of the most reassuring parts of her entire work. When Sylvia Browne talked about the Hall of Records, sometimes called the Akashic Library, there was this certainty in her voice that made the whole idea feel real in a way that's hard to shake off. She didn't describe it like a mystical concept or a metaphor. She described it like a literal place on the other side, a vast library that holds the complete story of every soul's journey across all of time. According to Sylvia, the Hall of Records is one of the most important structures on the other side. It contains the full history of every incarnation you've ever had. Not just the events, but the emotions, the intentions, the choices, and the growth that came from each lifetime. Nothing is lost. Every experience is preserved in perfect detail because everything you've ever lived becomes part of your soul's evolution. She explained that when a soul returns to the other side after a lifetime, the Hall of Records is where they go to understand the deeper meaning behind the life they just lived. It's not a place of judgment. It's a place of truth, a place where everything becomes clear in a way that's nearly impossible to grasp while you're here in physical form. Sylvia said that walking through the Hall of Records isn't overwhelming. It's actually comforting. You look at your lives not with shame or regret, but with understanding. You see your patterns. You see the moments where you broke through something important. You see the relationships that shaped you, and you begin to understand your soul in a much deeper way. One thing she emphasized often is that you're not alone in this process. Your guide is with you, helping you interpret everything. The council may be involved too. They don't tell you what you should feel. They help you see the meaning behind your choices so you can decide what you want to learn next, or whether you want to rest for a while. Sylvia also talked about how the Akashic Library isn't just about the past. She believed that souls on the other side study their potential futures too. Not fixed outcomes, because she was very clear that free will changes everything, but the possibilities, the potentials, the paths that feel aligned with the soul's next stage of growth. And here's something that always stayed with me. Sylvia said any soul can access this information at any time, not just after a lifetime, but between lives as well. We can study the lives we've lived, the themes that keep coming up, the lessons we've mastered, and the ones we're still working through. The Hall of Records isn't a place you visit once, it's a resource you return to as often as you need. When you look at this through the lens of consciously creating, it adds so much depth to the idea that we're here with purpose. We're not guessing our way through existence. Our lives follow patterns because our souls have been growing through them across many incarnations. And learning about those patterns doesn't confine you, it frees you. It helps you understand why certain experiences feel familiar, or why you're drawn to certain people or places without knowing why. Sylvia's teachings about the Hall of Records are some of her most profound because they give you a sense of continuity. You're not a single lifetime. You're a soul with a long, rich history, and every chapter of that history matters. Every lifetime teaches something that carries into the next, and the Hall of Records is where all of it comes together in a way that makes perfect sense. One of the questions people ask Sylvia Browne all the time was whether every soul keeps reincarnating or if there comes a point when the cycle ends. And her answer was always thoughtful, consistent, and surprisingly reassuring. She believed that reincarnation is a choice, not an obligation. Souls come to Earth because they want to grow, not because they're forced to. So naturally, there are souls who reach a point where they feel complete for a while and decide not to incarnate again, at least not right away. Sylvia explained that on the other side, the decision to reincarnate is made with full awareness. There's no confusion about what you need or where you are in your growth. Souls look at their history, their patterns, their strengths, and the areas where they still want depth or clarity. And from that place of understanding, they decide whether another lifetime would be meaningful. Not required, meaningful. She said that some souls choose to stay on the other side for very long stretches, centuries, even thousands of years in Earth time. For those souls, the desire to incarnate again just isn't there. They continue to learn, evolve, create, and study without ever needing to return to the physical world. And she made it clear that this isn't stagnation. The other side has limitless opportunities for growth. Being there isn't a standstill. It's simply a different style of evolution. Sylvia also said that some souls choose to stop reincarnating because they've reached a level of understanding where physical experience doesn't offer anything new. These souls might become guides, they might join the council, they might work in healing or teaching on the other side, but they don't need the intensity of Earth anymore. They've already gained what they came for across many lifetimes. And what I found so comforting is that Sylvia never tied this to morality or worthiness. A soul doesn't graduate because it's better. It simply shifts into a new phase of learning. Just like in physical life, where we grow out of certain experiences naturally, souls eventually grow out of the need for incarnation. She also described the souls who choose not to return as being very clear, very peaceful, and very steady. They're not avoiding anything. They're not afraid of coming back. They simply understand themselves well enough to know that their growth is taking a different direction now. And here's where consciously creating enters the picture. Sylvia believed that every lifetime adds to the soul's ability to create with intention. When a soul finally reaches the point where it doesn't need physical life anymore, it's because it has learned how to work with energy and intention effortlessly on the other side. Earth is the classroom. The other side is where you integrate everything you learned. And a soul who chooses not to reincarnate has integrated enough to move forward without needing the density of physical reality. She would also remind people that there's no rush. Most souls take many, many lifetimes to reach that level. Some never stop reincarnating because they genuinely love Earth. There's no right path. There's only the soul's path. Sylvia's teachings make it clear that we are far more free than we realize. Even the cycle of reincarnation isn't a trap. It's a choice, and it comes from clarity, not obligation. When you take everything Sylvia Browne shared about the other side and sit with it for a moment, something shifts. You start to see your life differently. You recognize that you're not wandering aimlessly. You're a soul who came here with purpose, with intention, and with far more history and wisdom than you remember day to day. And the beautiful part is that this understanding doesn't require you to change anything overnight. It's more about letting this bigger picture soften the way you move through the world. Maybe it helps you trust your intuition a little more. Maybe it helps you see certain people or experiences with a new sense of meaning. Maybe it brings comfort to know that you're guided and that nothing in your story is random. If there's one truth worth remembering, it's that your life makes sense on a level far deeper than you can see right now. You're growing in ways your soul planned before you ever arrived here, and you're doing far better than you think. Thank you for joining me on The Conscious Creator. If today's exploration inspired you, I really encourage you to read Sylvia Browne's Life on the Other Side for yourself. You'll find a link in the description. We have only touched the very beginning of what this book holds. There's so much more to learn, so much more to explore, and honestly, it's one of those rare books that changes the way you look at your entire existence. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who would appreciate these ideas. And if you want to go deeper into Sylvia's work, there will definitely be more videos coming. Remember this: you are a soul with a long history, a clear purpose, and a path that continues far beyond this lifetime.